Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Been a bloody epic day of just cleaning things up. As you can see, I moved the lumber here out of the way because I was using my kind of Jeep as a lumber stand. Anyways, gonna move this out of the way today. Gonna change out those tires because I'm gonna put it on those tires right here, which are the extended Lug Nut Conversion thingy to be on. Actually, no, it's just got a longer shoulder so that you can get more threads onto the axle studs. It's a way to get around putting in longer axle studs when you want to put on mag rims, because your aluminum is going to be a lot thicker than your tiny mild steel rims. So these are going to be put on. Obviously, these are old, but I got them for a decent price when I was working on the Jeep or putting it together, and that's why I have them, because I jump into projects and then something happens and then I jump out. Wasn't sure if I bolted it down, couldn't remember. It's been so long. Oh. Bloody hell. Okay, I don't have to worry about the clutch, but we'll put it in anyways. Let's see if she turns over. Nothing. That's not good. Let's run it. No, not enough power. Kind of sad. Okay, battery boosters engaged, and auto start, or the boosted start, remote start. The charger in start mode. Alrighty guys, so we're doing the charging of the batteries and the battery booster. We've got the socket sets, got the tires, we're gonna clean everything off with the power washer, got the impact, and we got the big tires. Yeah, so I got my axle stand. I've chalked the wheels as far back there, and we're just gonna do one by one. I have the, what do you call it? The axle studs right here, or the axle lugs right here with the longer shoulder, and I'll explain that in a little bit. So we're gonna switch out the tire. I'm gonna go back to switching this out anyways later on in the video because I forgot to put the anti-seize on the axle studs. But getting back to working on Frankenstein here, and it felt good today. It felt really good. A long time ago, someone I really care about, this was a project we were working on together, and when things went the other way, I didn't want to work on this thing anymore because I remembered her. So we got the first tire on. Had to straighten out the wheels there to show the measurement. Now, I'll show you guys in one time. So we have right there approximately, looks like about 38 and a half. We go to the other side from the ground, so there's always that tire. We have about 35 and a half. So there's 3 inches of difference from one tire to the other, which is cool. So we've got a 28-inch tire approximately. I can always look at the tire itself and know how big it is. Let's extend that a bit more. To a 31-inch tire. So that would, yeah, that'd be about 3 inches of additional clearance. I'm going to power wash this all down. So I'm going to change the next few tires. Later on in the video, I talk about the axle lug nuts with the foot-pounds torque, and I guessed at 100 foot-pounds. Now I found a rating on a website that said between 85 and 125 foot-pounds of torque for the lug nuts. Now, I don't know what the actual rating is, but if anybody knows, let me know so we can do this together. I was going to do this, but apparently the drum was just easy to take off. Usually you tighten these up, and you can tell the hardware is not so bad for sitting for so long. The pads are still fairly decent, not bad at all. Now the adjustment, you have got springs pulling every way. This is the it's the piston, so to speak. It pushes out both ways. What else do we have here? We have a spring for the e-brake. You want to use this regularly because now it uses the drum as both the stopping of the vehicle but also the e-brake. And then right in here, that's the adjustment. You can reach that from the back side. We go over this way, you'll see a rubber thing here. You pop this off and you put a flathead screwdriver in. Sometimes it's angled, so the screwdriver will have a 45 in it. And you just kind of actuate it so that when you have the drum on, and this is a very loose fitting drum, so it hasn't been adjusted in a while. You want to have it so it just contacts, and then you back it off one, so you have that little bit of distance so that the rotor can spin freely. Or sorry, drum can spin freely. Not rotor, drum. Rotors are up front. We'll get to those in a second. So I'm going to clean this off a bit more. And if you can see here, it's in gear, and it always is. The differential, this goes to the transfer case, and that's where it'll disengage. Depending on what kind of transfer case you have, because you can have a rear disengagement as well as a front disengagement to have it freewheel if you're going to be transferring it. Jeeps usually do. I'm not sure if this one does. That all being said, let's get back to the time lapse. Put the wheel back on. Anti-seize on here. I'm not going to worry about torque specs and stuff like that, but right here I was going to say the torque specs for each of the axle studs, and I decided to cut it out. Now the reason for that is because I don't want to give anybody the wrong information. I got a rating of 85 to 125 foot-pounds of torque for the lug nuts. I would recommend staying on the high end and then retighten once you've had 200 kilometers. Here is a cross-threaded stud. So we're going to attempt to use our tool and tab kit. Hopefully I have the right size for this. And we're going to, looks like one of those ones up there. Hopefully it's not the missing one. And we're going to tap this, see what happens. I end up not having the appropriate size, which is 1/2 by 20. And Well, when you don't have it, you can sometimes clean the threads by using the lug nut to do so. That didn't work for me, so I ended up just putting the 4 lug nuts on, and I will get the tap later. See by the smoothness of the rotor that it's not bad. This is salvageable. There's no lip on that, so she's still good. She just hasn't been used in a while. Pads got a little bit of meat on them. They're not perfect, but those are definitely used. But everything looks somewhat clean. Like, you can see where it was painted, and it's got rust coming through. So whoever had this vehicle before me took care of it. It's got a new suspension system and stuff like that. There's a lot of other things it does need, but it has an open differential for the front and the back. You can see right there with that still turning, which is normal. There's no LSD, limited slip differential. So, pretty stock Jeep, minus the lift, the tires, and that's about it. These were new when I got it, but they're starting to show their age from sitting. Although everything's been done reasonably well, except for the brake lines. Those were just kind of a mishmash. If you look over here, you see it going right across the top there. There's some sort of octopus style thing. No idea what's going on with that. So we're just gonna put some anti-seize on that, put this back on. And basically rotors and calipers and stuff like this, it just squeezes the rotor, and then that's what stops your vehicle. Nothing special. You want to bleed your rotors, you got this here, and then you just make sure your sliders are all lubed up. And that's about it. Braking systems are pretty daggone simple. That tire there has a bum axle stud. I don't have the actual key bit because I know I broke it a long time ago. And so I have to pick that up this week. And that way I can just re-key or retool that axle stud, and that way I can get another lug nut on there to secure the rim. Definitely not going to run it like that with only 4, because you're just asking for trouble. So back to the time lapse of me slapping this thing back on. Then I'm going to do another time lapse of me power washing this thing and the rims and stuff like that, both the ones I took off today and the ones I put on today. And because I want to get rid of the ones I took off, because I bought those brand new tires, everything like that, because I want to actually certify this vehicle for the road. That time has elapsed, so I just want to kind of fix it up a little bit, put it in my garage, fix up some more, and then actually physically get on the road. I do still have the original rims, and on that note, lengthen your axle studs by putting new ones in. You just press them out, put them in. You can get longer shoulders for your lug nuts that way, because the previous ones only got on about a couple turns and that was it. It was enough for me to get in the backyard here, and whoever was the previous owner of mine, this Jeep, we use these axle studs and axle nuts, lug nuts, and then these ones as well. So you have your pretty standard close-ended acorn lug nut. You have your open-ended. This is your typical thing when you have a stock rim, usually Steelies, or you have a pretty panel that goes over top of this, like the center cap. You usually find these underneath. Some of them will have two things. We'll have the nut, and they'll have a threaded nut, both in the same one and the same, and that'll be for the cap that goes on, so you just thread it on. Nothing too special about that. And you have these ones, which are a very different alternative to when you don't have enough room. So they give you a longer shoulder. I'm not sure how strong these are. I don't really hear a lot of bad things about it. A lot of off-roaders use these when they want to run these kinds of rims. Typically when they want to run a bigger tire and they don't want to go through the whole process of taking out their axle and all that nonsense and then pressing these out and putting it back on, they'll just run a longer shoulder lug nut. That's it. So we're going to put these back on after I lube that up, and that'll be it after I power wash. Long shoulder axle lug nuts. I've never actually seen or heard anything bad happen with these things. I have seen when somebody doesn't have the appropriate lug nut and they still run it a couple threads on, and then the rim shears off and they have a catastrophic accident. That compared to spacers, where there's 3 types. You have the simple spacer that just goes right on the hub, pushes out the rim. People sometimes use that, or adapters. Then you have your lug centric, which fits on the actual studs, and then you have your hub centric, which are the safest. Now, I only would ever run hub centric. I have run lug centric before, and if you don't do them properly over time, they will move and create vibrations. That's why I choose hub centric, because it rests on top of the hub of the stock axle, and then it also has a hub where the rim rests on, and it's very, very secure. Hey guys, I forgot to film an outro for this video. So we're down in my basement and we're just going to talk about a couple things before we sign off here. But before you go, if you're still listening, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave them down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Now back to what I want to talk about. I touched a little bit on different types of lug nuts and axle studs and things of that nature. Typically, people like to use the long shoulder lug nuts as an alternative to pressing out their axle studs. And when you want to press out your axle studs, more than likely, and if it's a solid axle, you're going to have to take out the entire thing. So you're going to have to open up the differential casing, pop out the C-clips and whatnot if that's how your axles are holding. And then you take out the axle itself, put it into a press, and then pop in a new axle studs. And then you can run your stock lug nuts, which is why people decide to bypass that and just get longer shoulder lug nuts instead of lengthening or getting the longer axle studs put in. Now this is great until you have a catastrophic failure. However, I've never seen someone have the long shoulder lug nuts have a catastrophic failure. I have seen, however, where people have spacers and you have the shearing effect. So there's a simple pancake spacer. There's no actual axle studs in it or anything like that. There's no additional lug nuts. And that spacer where I live is illegal. And the reason for that is because your rim wants to sit on the hub. And the hub is a tiny little lip. So any impacts, road noise, all that kind of nonsense, like potholes and stuff, it all gets transferred from the tire to the rim, to the hub, to the suspension. Now, if you have a spacer of that sort, and you hit a bump or something like that, or a pothole or anything like that, like a catastrophic, like boom, and your whole vehicle, like, rah, rah, rah. And at that point, you're not on the hub or the lip, you're resting on the axle studs. And you're just going to shear off, you're going to lose your tire, you're going to lose control, you might lose your vehicle, you could get really hurt or worse. Now, another thing about this is why there's two other types of spacers. You have your lug-centric and your hub-centric. Lug-centric is the one that just fits to the hub and uses that lip, and then it's solid. You want to use Loctite, and you want to, if you're going to get that kind of spacer, you don't want the ones where the axle studs screw into the spacer because you'll have additional problems. You want the ones that are pressed in because they're much stronger with that friction fit. And then obviously you want all your torque specs to be appropriate. And again, I use the red Loctite, the it's where it's permanent and you don't have to worry about anything like that. I ran these without that, and over time you'll get a little bit of a vibration. It's not that great. That's why I really push the idea of, if you're going to run this kind of spacer or adapter for different rims or something like that, get the hub-centric. And the hub-centric spacer rests on the hub of the vehicle, but also gives the hub or a little lip for the rim to rest on. And that way everything is as secure as possible. It's already dangerous when you run these things. I've seen people run up to 2 inches. Now in the past, I ran 1.5 inches on my Marquee to put, and that's your basically Crown Vic, to push out the rims so I could run Mustang rims. It looked beautiful. I love the look of the car. And I ran those for a little bit, and then the vibrations were coming in, and I'm like, you know what? I don't need this. I sold the rims, sold the spacers. People that bought it, they bought it actually for the Mustang, and the rims went to another Mustang, obviously. But I had my experience with them. I learned a little bit of the knowledge. This goes back years ago, and I'm actually surprised I remember that, to be honest with you. Anytime I remember stuff, I'm like, woo! Good, that's a win. Now my arm's getting a little sore, so I'm just going to switch over to here. And to end off the video, a cheap fix is to run the long shoulder lug nuts for your short axle studs, and that works. Again, never heard of a failure with those things, but if I had to choose, and if I had a racing vehicle, I would lean towards popping out the axles to install longer axle studs. There are probably ways to get around it. Like if your vehicle is only 2-wheel drive and not 4-wheel drive, in the front it'd just be easy to pop off or unbolt the hub and then press those things in and out. Same as you would if you had like a trailer set up and whatnot and you want to put new studs in. Very easy to do. But once you have the drivetrain in there, it gets a bit more difficult because you have to pull everything apart. Unless you have, what's the one where it has universal joints and stuff? I want to say CVT, but I know that's wrong. But it's where the axle is a independent suspension, and those axles you can actually just pop the drive axle out and change everything that you need to, and in some cases you can just unbolt the hub section of it and then change it all out, which is a lot easier than a solid axle. What else can I think about? That's about it. Anyways, guys, if you like what I do here, like what I talk about, how I can share some of my knowledge with y'all, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, again, leave them down below. Today was just very, very fun. I've had this vehicle for a while, and I stopped working on it because I was working on it with a friend, well, somebody I really care about. I want to say friend, but it's somebody that I love very, very, very dearly. And I stopped working on it because anytime I looked at the vehicle, I would remember them. But enough time has passed and whatnot, and I feel that I can start working on this vehicle again, which is why it hasn't been, or I haven't done anything to it, which is a lot of things in my life I just put on hold until I could fix who I am. I'm working towards that. Like, I got the backyard all cleaned up again. Thank you to my mom. She was pushing on it this week because she had this week off. And I know I'm digressing a little bit here, so please bear with. I just want to give my mom a little shout out. And just kind of like putting on those tires was amazing. Again, I don't know the actual torque specs. I read it online. 85 foot-pounds of torque, 225 foot-pounds of torque. And I looked at a bunch of other things, so I got some more information about everything from the transfer case to manual transmission to automatic transmission specs to changing water pump specs for the actual torques of each of those nuts and bolts and everything like that. But I did not get the lug nuts. I got a rating between 85 and 125 foot-pounds of torque, which I'll just go to 125, and we'll just, hopefully that works. And I guarantee you guys, well, I can't guarantee it, but that's where I'm going to go. And after 200 kilometers, I will re-torque everything just to make sure everything is proper, and that's the way you do it. That all being said, I was very pleasantly surprised to see the vehicle sitting and not having anything done, that the brakes were still good. Obviously the lines are, but I can blow apart the drums, clean all that stuff up, put it all back together. Same with the rotors, and the rotors themselves looked really, really good, considering they haven't been used. Usually everything gets corroded and they're just gone. Yet they're all pitted and everything, got to replace them. But these ones, not bad. So a couple drives around the block, I'm not going to do that, but if I did, these things would be shiny. So what can you learn from all this? Don't run the pancake spacers. Don't run the lug-centric spacers because you get vibrations and they're not that safe. Run hub-centric if you need to. Again, I've seen people run up to 2-inch spacers. Now, the reasons for this are, again, 4x4. What I'm doing today is another reason. Because the short axle studs, you can actually run in a spacer like that. And I've seen people cut their axle studs down to run spacers, and you don't want to do that either. And they want to run bigger rims. Drag cars like to do it because they can get the fat tires without having to tub their drag cars. So that's another reason why. But all that being said, there's a little bit of knowledge that I just wanted to kind of put in this video. Hope you guys like it, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace! Now I'm gonna hit the button.